So I've been practicing art for a long time. I make objects, I move around those objects, I use whatever material that I want to use, and I talk about things that are difficult for me to talk about or difficult for society to talk about. My mother had died in 2002. She was sick from cancer for several years. Like, she was diagnosed with cancer when I was 8. Most of my teenage years and late childhood was kind of surrounded by this impending terminal illness. My dad was from the generation that had this illusion of what we as an independent nation should become. He spent 20 years in Germany. He faced a lot of racism in Germany. He also missed the moment of independence in Kenya. In my early years, I was really using art as a therapeutic method to process through my own family history. Unearthing stories and histories that I myself have to deal with, but also like my society has to deal with, both on the German side and on the Kenyan side. How history affects the present. My practice was always embedded in storytelling. Kasel is a trickster character who speaks the truth. He's a truth teller. They're actually gender fluid. And Kasel has basically become a tool for me to speak about issues that are untouchable or unapproachable. An example of this is the recent project I did with Nyayo House. So Nyayo House was built in my birth year, 1979. The design of a torture chamber was embedded in the original design of the building. In President Moi's time, it was a known space of torture. So I did a project around the torture that took place in that era. Specifically referenced the 1992 mothers' protests. They kind of stripped bare as a last resort. For mothers to be seen naked is like seen as a big curse. So it was a successful action done in the protest. There's a moment where I also strip, like the women, the mothers stripped in the park in remembrance of that time. And the fingernails are golden and the hands are painted with ochre. I have a mask and a golden mouth, and I often remove the mask and put it back. Kasela's ancestors is something that's an ongoing work. And this is one with 4 heads. I have an ability to communicate to other spaces and beings. In I've Heard Many Things About You, a 4.5-hour performance in Bremen, which is the city where Adolf Luderitz was born. He basically built the port for the extraction of materials out of Namibia. On the Veil is a lot of writing by Henrik Witbooi, who was one of the 9 chiefs of Namibia, who was really hunted by both colonial groups, the British and the Germans, because he was so resistant to being colonized. And his daughter was 16. They were ambushed and she was murdered, but she cursed out the German general before he killed her. And I thought that was a superbly courageous act. Her energy is what I adopted for the walk. The costume I wear is a Herero costume that is used during commemoration of the genocide that took place that the Germans committed. Art is something that feeds my being, and my life and my art are not separated.